Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program is a book club points. Okay. All right, so book club points. Okay, so Serendipity Booksellers has a book. Serendipity, yeah. I thought I pronounced it wrong. Serendipity Booksellers has a book club that awards points to its customers based on the number of books purchased each month. The points are awarded as follows. So if a customer purchased 0 books, then they'll earn 0 points. If the customer purchased 1 book, then they earn 5 points. 2 books, 15 points. 3, 30. 4 or more books, they're going to earn 60 points. So write a program that asks the user to enter the number of books that he or she has purchased this month, and then display the number of points awarded. Okay, so I've never used a switch statement in any of the programs I did in chapter 3. So I'm going to use a switch statement for this one. It's a variant of conditional expressions. So yes, I haven't used a switch statement. I don't think so. If I have, I doubt. I don't think I use a switch statement. So because of that, I want to use a switch statement in at least one program in chapter 3, because chapter 3 covered switch statements. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll create the class. And I'll call it book club point. Oh boy, I type in. Okay. And then I'll create the main method. Okay, so because I'm going to be asking the user to enter the number of books, I need a feature in Java, one of Java's features for for accepting user input. And in this case, I'm going to be using the scanner class. I'm just choosing to use the scanner class. I can use the GOption pane, but I'm just choosing to use the scanner class because I used the GOption pane class in the previous program. So in order to use the scanner class, I need to import it and give this program access to it. So I'm going to import the scanner class by writing the statement import java.util.scanner. And with the scanner class, I need to create a scanner object so I can use it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a scanner object. I'm going to call it scanner. I'm going to create a new scanner object. And I'm going to call the system.in method, which is going to accept byte info from the keyboard and connect it to the scanner object so that I can use it. I'm going to terminate it. Okay, so now once I have the scanner object, now I can go ahead and ask the user to enter the number of books he or she purchased for the month. So I'm going to type a system.out.println I'm going to say, please enter the number of books purchased for the month. Sorry, my typing is bad. Alright, for the month. Okay. And then I'm going to use a scanner object and call the next int method. And what next int is going to say, what scanner.next int is going to do is it's going to pop up a text box. That's going to allow the user to type in something. And it's going to convert whatever the user typed into an integer. And once it does that, we need a place to store it. We need a variable to store it. Because it's going to be an integer, it's going to be the number of books. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to go ahead and declare an integer variable, and I'm going to call it user number of books. And once it converts whatever the user types into an integer, I'm going to store it in user number of books. So now I have the user's number of books. So I can go ahead and check to see how many books. If it's 0, so we can award the person 0 points. If it's 1, we can award the person 5 points, and so on. So I mentioned I was going to use a switch statement, but before I use a switch statement, I'm going to use an if statement to test to see if the value that the user enters is less than 0. If it's negative, for example, if the user types in -1, what should the program do? Or -5, or anything less than 0, what should the program do? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and use an if statement first. Okay, this is a way of doing it. One way of doing it. There are a couple of ways. I'm sure there are ways that people are also going to do it. Different ways that people are going to do it. But this is one way of doing it. I'm going to use an if statement and check on the user's number of books. Okay, the user number of books. So I'm going to see if the user number of books is less than 0, anything less than 0, because over here the program starts from 0. Basically, it says if it's the books are 0, if the books that you purchase is 0 are 0, then you're earning 0 points. So for anything less than 0, if the user types in -1, then the program should go ahead and say that system.out.println should say that please enter a valid value. The valid value. Okay. So if the number of books is not less than 0, then do whatever I'm going to type. So else. Okay, if it's not less than 0, then that means it's either 0 or above. So I've basically filtered out anything less than 0. So if it's not less than 0, else, then do what I'm going to type here. Okay, so if it's not less than 0, then that's why I'm going to introduce a switch. Now, because I have never used a switch, I'm going to space it out nicely so that it doesn't get confusing. So if the user number of books, okay, is not less than 0, meaning if it's 0, 1, and above, okay, meaning if it's 0 above, if it's not less than 0, then I'm going to use a switch statement. It's just like the if statement, it's the same structure. And I'm going to switch between the options I'm going to type here based on the value of user number of books. So switch between the options I'm going to type below based on the value of the number of books. So based on the value of the user's number of books, do what's below based on the number of books. So okay. So the first statement I'm going to type is, in the case where the user number of books is 0, I'm going to put a colon. So in the case where the user number of books is 0, then the user gets, if the user's number of books is 0, then the user gets 0 points. We need a variable to store the user's number of points. So I'm going to create another variable. Points is just going to be an integer because all the points are integers, 0, 5, 10, 15, 30, 60. So I need a variable to store the number of the points. So I'm going to create another variable, which is going to be an integer. And I'm going to call it user number of, or user points. You can say user points or user number of points, I guess, just to follow, the structure, or I know, just to be consistent. But you can call it anything you want, as long as it's make it logical. Okay, so I've created the user number of points, and that's going to store the user's points. So in the case where I'm switching between, this switch statement is switching between the options I'm going to type here based on the number of based on the value of user number of books. So in the case where user number of books is 0, then user number of points Okay, you can call it user points. Let me go ahead and make it user points. So just to keep it simple, I think it sounds even nicer that way. Okay, user points. Okay, so in the case where the user number of books is 0, then the point of the user point is going to be 0. And I'll terminate it. And I'll keep on repeating it here. And I'll say, in the case where the user number of books is 1, I'll put the colon, and I'll say user point is going to be 5. Now I forgot something. Okay, so with this, I forgot the break statement after the first case. So in the case where it's just like an if statement. In the case where the user number of books is 0, the user point is 0, break out of the switch statement. Break out of it, and you're done. Because now we know that the user's number of books is 0, so the point is 0. Break out of the loop. Don't even go ahead and do the rest, because if you don't put the break statement here, it's going to go ahead and run everything after this. Because if the user's number of books is 0, it's without the break statement, it's going to run everything after this case 0, and we don't want that. We want this. If the user's number of books is 0, store 0 in user number of in the user points, and break out of the switch statement. That's why I'm putting the break there. So after every case, we are breaking out of the switch statement, because we've found what we need. We found that the user number of books is 0. We've done what we need. We break out of the loop. In this case, let's say if the books is 1, we found that it's 1. We stored 5 in user points, and we break out of the statement. So every case breaks. It has a break statement. Sorry. So just like the if statement. Okay, so in the case where the user number of books is 2, he or she earns 15 points. Colon, user point points. User point is equal to 15. No more. Okay, a couple more. In the case where the user buys 3 books, he or she earns 30 points. Oops, I forgot to break. So in the case where the user's number of books is 3, colon, user point is going to be equal to 30. Yeah, 30, right? 30 points here. Now over here it says 4 or more books. 4 or more. So they're just like if else statement, right? Just like an if statement, if statement. I don't know if you start an if else statement and you keep on going and say if this is that, else if this is that, else if this is that. The last statement, based on your program or based on your question, will have, let's say, an else. An else is just similar to default in when using a switch statement. So the default is what's going to happen when none of these cases are true. So if the user's book is not, the number of books is not 0, it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, then whatever it is, do this for it. But if it's 0, do this. If it's 1, do this. If it's 2, do this. If it's 3, do this. If it's none of these, then do what's in the default. Forgot to put the break statement here. Okay, so default, that means that first we've already filtered that it's not less than 0. So that means we know that it's 0 or 0 and above. If it's 0, do this. If it's 1, do this. If it's 2, do this. If it's 3, do this. If it's none of these, okay, then do what's in the default. So if it's none of these, then we know that it's 4 and above. It's any number 4 and above. Because over here we said if the user number of books is less than 0, meaning if it's a negative number, basically. If it's not, then start a switch statement. Then we know that the number we are dealing with is 0 and above. If it's 0, do this. If it's 1, do this. If it's 2, do this. If it's 3, do this. If it's none of these, then that means that the number is 4 and above. And that's what we have here. If the customer purchases 4 or more books, he or she earns 60 points. So default, then user point is going to be equal to 60. And we can add the break statement. But the thing is, the break statement is the last statement in the switch block. So you don't necessarily have to put a break statement, but it's good practice, and I always put a break statement. It's good practice to put a break statement. I always do that, but you don't have to. You don't have to. I just put it there because it's, okay, because it's the last statement in the switch statement. So once it gets to, even if you don't put it there, once it finishes this line, it jumps out of the loop. I mean, not the loop. Sorry. It's not a loop. It's not a loop. Once it's not there, once it's done with this default statement, it jumps out of the block. Okay, not a loop. We haven't gotten to. This is not a loop at all. It's just running through from top to bottom and continuing down. So okay, so once it runs this statement, it jumps out of the block, the switch block. So you don't necessarily need a break statement, but it's good practice to put it there, and I always put it there. And this is also going to break out of the loop. I keep on saying loop. It's not a loop. I'm sorry. It's not a loop. It's a block. Okay, I'm sorry for that. Please, I'm sorry. It's very important. I'm very sorry. It's not a loop. It's a block. So once this break statement is also going to cause the program to jump out of the block. Okay, if you don't put it there, once it runs this last statement here, let's say this wasn't there, it's still going to, what am I doing? Okay, once it runs this last statement, it's still going to jump out of the block. If you put it there, once it sees this statement, this break statement, it's still going to, this break statement is still going to cause it to jump out of the block. Okay. All right. Sorry for that, for all the talking and just trying to make it clear. I know I talk too much. That I know for sure. I know for sure, but yeah, it's just to make things clear. Anyway, all right. So once we're done here, so this is basically the beginning of the block of the switch statement, and it ends here. And this is the closing curly brace for the if statement. This the else part of the if statement. So the opening curly brace of the else statement, and the closing curly brace of the else statement here. And this is the closing curly brace of the if statement, the opening curly brace of the if statement. So this block basically covers all of this. This is the if statement, and within the if statement, to be specific, within the else block is the switch statement and its block. Okay, all right. So after the whole if statement, including the switch statement, okay, the whole if statement which includes the switch statement runs, then now we'll have the value of the value of the user's number of points, of the user's point in user point variable. I'll keep on saying this is user points, not user point. User points. Okay, so once it finishes running, we'll have the points in user points. So all we have to do is display it. The program says, and then displays the number of points awarded. So all we have to do is now a simple system.out.println. System.out.println and we're just going to say let's just be strict with the book. The number of points awarded. All right, the number of points, or let's just say you were awarded, and I'm going to concatenate it, and I'm going to use a variable user point and concatenate it again with a string. So you are awarded this number of points. So if this is 4, it's going to say you are awarded 4 points. Okay. Okay, so we're done. Let me take this down. Okay, so we're done. That's the full program. I spaced it out just to be clear with the break state, the switch statement. Okay, all those case and break statements. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and compile it and create a new folder. And then I'll save it here. Okay, so we have an error and it says cannot find symbol variable scanner. Okay, over here I spelt, when I was creating the scanner object, I spelt it with 3 N's. I meant to spell it with 2 N's. So this didn't it didn't know what this was, because there were 3 N's here and there were 2 N's here. So now there are 2 N's. This is similar to, this is what I'm using here. So it shouldn't complain. Now it shouldn't complain. It won't complain, hopefully. Compile it and we have another error. Okay, so it says variable user points might not have been initialized. Okay, so initially when everyone starts, because no one has purchased any book yet, they have 0 points. So initially everyone has 0 points until they start buying a book or buying books. So I'm going to compile it, and I first initialize it to 0 and compile it, and it compiled successfully. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run the program. Please enter the number of books purchased for the month. So I'm going to first enter a negative number, -4. Oops. Okay. So it worked. It said please enter a valid value, but it also displayed you were awarded 0 points, and that's because we are printing this statement after all of this block has run. So okay, so we are doing this. We're supposed to, if for example, if the user's number of books is less than 0, right, we print out the statement, please enter a valid value, and then end the program. It shouldn't go ahead and still display you are awarded 0 points, because user when the program starts, user point is 0 over here. So when I entered a negative number, the program quit out of this if statement, this if else block, and then came down and still displayed this string. But we're not supposed to display the string until the value that the user enters is valid. So I'm just going to cut this statement and paste it when the value is valid. Okay, because over here it says if user number of books is less than 0, then display this message, jump out of the if statement and do nothing here. Else, then do this. Okay, so else means that the user number of book is not less than 0. That means it's a valid value. So go ahead and do this. And once you finish once you finish doing all of this, everything in the switch block, now go ahead and display the message before you close the if statement. So that's the closing curly brace of the if statement. But so I pasted a message in here. Okay, so once it does everything, once it manages to enter the else block, that means the number is valid. And once you finish checking or awarding the points based on the value of the number of books of the user, then display the message. And then now go ahead and close the if statement before you display the message before you close the if statement. So this is the message here now. But if the user number of books is less than 0, then display please enter a valid value. Jump right out of the if statement and do nothing here. Okay, jump right out of the if statement and do nothing. So there's nothing here. So I hope it's clear, and I hope no one got confused. If you didn't understand it, please comment down below with what you didn't understand, and I'll try to explain. But that's basically the idea. That's basically the explanation. So now it's going to print this statement in the else section of this if statement only when the user enters a valid value. If the user didn't enter a valid value, it's going to display this message, jump out of the if statement, and do nothing here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just tighten this up a bit. Okay. All right. So now we're done. Once this is not valid, it's going to jump out of the if statement. Once the user number of books is not valid, it's going to print the message, jump out of the if statement here, down here, and do nothing here. But if the user number of books is valid, okay, else meaning if the user number of books is not less than 0, then award the right points, close the switch statement, and display the message before you exit out of the if block. Okay. I just wanted to be clear, so I went on my talking. Anyway, I just kept on talking. Anyway, I just wanted to be clear, so I hope it is. Again, if you don't understand, just comments down below, and I'll try to explain. But that's basically the explanation. All right, so now let's compile it again and run it. So I'm first going to enter a negative number. So -4, and now it says please enter a valid value. Didn't do anything. I'm going to compile it again and run it one more time. Another negative value, -7. Please enter a valid value. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to enter now a 0. Now the program said if you purchase 0 books, he or she earns 0 points. So I'm expecting 0 points. So I'm going to hit enter, and now it said you were awarded 0 points. I'm going to keep on hitting compile. I'm going to run it and enter over here. If you purchase 1 book, he or she earns 5 points. I'm going to enter 1. You are awarded 5 points. I'm going to test number 3. If you bought 3 books, then you get 30 points. So I'm going to enter 3 books, and you are awarded 30 points. I'm going to test 4 or more books. Okay, so I'm going to start with 4. 4 or more books, you get 60 points. So 4, hit enter, you are awarded 60 points. I'm going to enter 1,000 books if you bought 1,000 books. So if you bought 1,000 books, you still were awarded 60 points because it said 4 or more books. But if I enter a negative number again, you please enter a valid value. If I enter 0, I get 0 points. If I enter negative, oh no, not negative, 2, I get 15 points. I awarded 15 points. Okay, so the program works, and if you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to reply to them. And thank you very much for watching the program. Watching the video. The program. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time with the next program. This is the end of chapter 3. This is the last program in chapter 3. So I'll see you next time with the next, or the first program in chapter 4, which is the next program or the next video. I'm trying to mix words here. Anyway, I'll see you next time with the next program. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye, and thanks for watching.